Hello, and welcome to Willow Waves, a student-produced podcast that brings together young minds to explore and discuss current events and topics that connect all of us.
Welcome back to Willow Waves, the podcast where we explore big ideas, cool careers, and amazing stories. Brought to you by students at Willow Springs Elementary.
I'm Michael, and I'm here with my co-host Kyle. Today we've got an exciting episode that's really going to take off, literally.
That's right, we're talking about Charles Greenfield, a commercial airline pilot who flies a Boeing 717. He's here to tell us what it's like to be in the cockpit, how he became a pilot, and what it takes to fly a real jet.
So if you've ever looked up at a plane in the sky and wondered what it's like to be flying one, this episode is for you. Let's get started. How long have you been a pilot?
So I've been a pilot. I started learning to fly in 2013, but I've had a job as a pilot since 2015. But I've had a lot of different jobs, so kind of a multifaceted question there, but flying no total for about 12 years.
Okay.
Was it scary to start?
You know, it really wasn't. I've always wanted to fly and was always interested in airplanes. The more you learn, I wouldn't say there's fear, but there's just a respect for when things go wrong and how we have to react and that sort of thing. But no, I wouldn't say I was ever scared.
What is the most fun part about it?
The most fun part is probably flying the actual airplane. When we are putting our hands on and flying the airplane, that's what's most fun. There's a lot of other things that come along with being a professional pilot. For instance, I'm an airline pilot. So we're not always physically flying the airplane. A lot of times the autopilot does that for us. But when the hands are on the airplane actually flying it, I still enjoy it, and hopefully we'll always enjoy it. So that's probably my favorite part. The views don't stink either.
How many different buttons and switches are there?
Oh man, so there's a lot. So the airplane I fly right now is called the Boeing 717, and I don't have anything with me right here that can show you, but we have a whole overhead panel, and then we have a lot of buttons on the center pedestal. But my airplane's pretty automated. It does a lot of things for us, but there are a lot of buttons. We don't touch all the buttons every single flight, but we have to know what they all do. In case, we need to touch them, if something's going wrong or we need to change what a system's doing. So we study the buttons quite a bit. We get what's called a type rating on the airplane we fly. So I'm specifically trained to fly this airplane, and if I want to go fly a new one, I've got to learn all that airplane's systems as well. So,
what is the coolest mechanism in the cockpit?
The coolest, let's see, that's a good question. Well, the autopilot's pretty neat, and I'll say the autopilot. So it can do a whole lot for us. It's not like maybe in the movies you've seen, you click a button and the airplane just flies itself. The autopilot is just kind of it's a way for us to not have to physically fly the airplane with our hands. We still have to fly it with our heads, though. We have to tell the autopilot what we want it to do. But my airplane can actually do an auto land, so it can land completely without us touching anything, which is pretty neat. We have to watch it and make sure, it's doing everything right. So in case we need to come in at the last second and change something, but the auto land feature is really neat. So I'd say that's probably the coolest thing. Not every airplane I've flown can do that, so that's pretty neat.
What types of airplanes have you flown?
So I've flown probably around 10 different types of airplanes. So when you learn to fly, you fly, pretty small airplanes, one engine, and it's actually, it's more simple than a car engine. It's got less computers. It's just you control a lot more than you control on your car. So I've flown probably 6 or 8 different types of propeller airplanes, smaller, and then my first real job outside of flight instructing was a corporate flight job. And I flew a little bit bigger airplane, and it had a propeller, but it's what we call a turboprop. So it actually uses jet fuel and a jet engine to spin the yellow. So it works a little bit differently. And then I've flown 2 different types of jets that you would fly on as an airline passenger. So without doing the math, publicly, I'd say probably right around 10 airplanes I've flown, 10 different kinds.
What is the fastest you've flown?
The fastest I've flown. So that's a good question, but it's also not a super simple question to answer. So we got a couple different speeds we use when we fly, especially in jets. We've got a speed that's shown on our airspeed tape relative to the air around us. We've got a speed that's corrected for how thin the air is up high, but for probably what you're looking for is our ground speed. So we can fly a certain speed in the air, and it can be completely changed by how fast the wind is blowing and where it's blowing from. So if we got a wind blowing into our face, it's going to slow us down. If we got a wind pushing us from the back, it's going to speed us up. So the fastest I've flown over the ground is 650 knots per hour, which is close to 700 miles an hour over the ground. So pretty quick. And that's in the wintertime when it's really strong winds. So
Has anything dangerous happened while you're flying?
I've had a couple less scary emergencies. I've had a medical emergency on an airplane once when I was the captain. The most dangerous thing that's happened to me in the airplane was when I was a flight instructor. I was teaching a new student how to land. And when we do that, we do what's called a touch and go. So we'll land, we'll get the airplane ready to go, and we'll take right back off. So we don't pull off and taxi back and do a new takeoff. We just transition right into a takeoff. It's pretty common in flight instructing. So I was doing that with a student, and we took back off, and there was actually an issue with the flight controls on the airplane to where, in my estimation, we weren't going to be able to get back and land safely on the runway. So I actually took over the airplane, and we landed in a farmer's field right off in front of the runway. So that was kind of scary after the fact. When you're dealing with that, you have to kind of move the fear aside and deal with the situation and trust your training. So yeah, the off-airport landing was the craziest things happened to me.
Was it bumpy and stuff?
It was a little bumpy, and it was actually muddy, which helped us slow down, which was really good. We got mud all over the airplane, but it slowed us down, which was helpful.
What made you want to fly planes?
I have always been interested in airplanes. You might be able to see the one behind me. Michael, your dad, his grandpa is also my grandpa. And he was involved in aviation in World War II, and so was my dad's dad. Neither of them flew after the war, but I was interested in airplanes as a young child, and it never really went away. And then, I would pick their brains and ask them about things, and was always just interested in everything flying. So I don't know what one thing really sparked it, but I'm sure my grandfather's had something to do with it too. So,
What's the first plane you flew?
the first plane I flew, it's called a Diamond DA-40. It was so my school here, Middle Tennessee State. That's where I learned to fly, and we had a fleet of about 35 different airplanes. And so it's actually it's Canadian. I think it's actually an Austrian company, but they build them in Canada for North America. It's a composite airplane, a little bit more new than some of the old metal airplanes. So that's the first airplane I flew.
That was such an awesome conversation. Huge thanks to Captain Charles Greenfield for joining us and sharing what it's like to fly a Boeing 717.
We learned so much about what goes on in the cockpit and what it takes to become a pilot. Who knows, maybe one of us will become a pilot someday.
Thanks for tuning in to Willow Waves. If you like this episode, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it with your friends.
We'll be back soon with more exciting stories right here on Willow Waves. Bye for now.